everybody, it's Brian Easton, author of the Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter series. This is Whiskey with the Werewolf Hunter. Thanks for joining me tonight. Now, I'm not going to be imbibing this evening. I have someplace to be later, so I won't be tasting any of the creature, but I will going to show you a few bottles that I've got behind me here. I've got a vintage collection of whiskey bottles and their spirits. This is the Belle of Lincoln. This was a Jack Daniels made product back in the 1930s or so. It's most famous from the Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark movie when India's in Cairo, and you can see him carrying around a bottle, and it's the Belle of Lincoln. So that was kind of a neat one in my collection. Then I also have an old bottle of Jack Daniels Old Number 7. That was from back in the late 40s, early 50s. And I have a few others. I'm a collector of whiskey bottles and decanters and such. So I thought I'd share those with you a little bit tonight since I'm not actually drinking any of the stuff. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit tonight about World War I, because that's where the next book in the Winterfox series is going. I thought about this quite a bit, and if you don't know already, the prequel to the Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter series is the Michael Winterfox series, which debuted last year with the first volume, and there will be more to follow. The first volume of the Michael Winterfox series, who is the mentor of Sylvester James in the original trilogy, ends, the first installment ends with him enlisting to go to war. Now, unlike Sylvester, who crosses the border into the United States from Canada to enlist in Vietnam in the 1960s, many years earlier, Winterfox had actually crossed from the United States into Canada to enlist to go fight the Great War at that time, as it was known, or would be known. It wouldn't be till much later that it was known as World War I. In fact, it was not until World War II did they call it World War I. But that's neither here nor there. The thing I wanted to share with you is that as Michael Winterfox goes off to war, and I have to write this story, I've been thinking a lot about how mythic things were back then, and how World War I is pretty much the tail end of like the last great mythic age, if you will. I mean, all through recorded history, you've got the different heroes and villains and monsters and gods that populate mythology and legend. And it's not really until the Industrial Revolution and we start losing a lot of that superstition, if you will, or a lot of that mythic character that we start to come into the modern age, which we recognize. And so we have to keep in mind, or I have to keep in mind while I'm writing it, that Michael doesn't know anything about this age that we live in right now. As far as he's concerned, the culture that he has lost and is losing is the world to him. You know, he's Native American, Northern Cheyenne, and those old ways of his father and his grandfather and on before him, they're faded away like half-erased figures on a chalkboard, you know, and he has to deal with that, and he comes to grips with a lot of that in the first book of the Winterfox saga. But as he goes to war, and I'm struck by the idea that this is the last time man still knows, or that man is still in touch with some of those more ancient spirits, when he's in touch with the legends of his past, especially one such as Michael's. The spirits were still walking with man, even though that time was rapidly coming to a close. Science had yet to ascend the throne of God and had yet to overthrow the faith that so many people around the world held in whatever religion they held to. And so it was the last time that man was open to the experience, I think, which is why we don't find a lot of surprise, or not as much surprise anyway, in some of the ancillary characters in the book when Michael meets up with them, and you know they have to deal with the kind of creatures that he's dealing with and is facing. And so you don't get quite the same degree of skepticism and surprise. And I think that's because it's, they may have not have believed in some of these things, but they damn sure thought it was possible. Or at least most people did, I think. Now, I'm not trying to say that everybody was backward and ignorant. That's just the way that the world was. And until, like I said, until science came along and pretty much took over the role that religion had held for so many centuries, it was all fair game as far as spirits and monsters and what have you. So as I'm writing the next installment of the Winterfox series, I keep that very close to heart, that this is a time, this is the last chance, really, for monsters to walk in open daylight. It's the last chance for spirits to talk to man without being second-guessed and naysayed by the general masses. So if you keep that in mind when you're reading it, I'll keep it in mind while I'm writing it, if you'll keep it in mind when you're reading it. So if you think about it, we're not really that far removed from those days of superstition, of those days where spirits still walked with man. The World War I just became 100 years old, just a few years ago. So we are now, when I was a kid, 100 years ago meant the Wild West. Well, I'm not that old, but now it means the 19-teens, World War I. So just wanted to share that with you tonight. I don't have anything else except that. Just felt like I needed to get it off my chest, clear my brain a little bit about that, and let you think about it as we both anticipate the next installment of Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter, the Winterfox Journals. Thank you for being with me for this little bit tonight, and until I see you again, happy hunting and mind the moon.